Hello, friends. Today I want to talk to you about the Mars moving into Aries, which actually started today. And Mars is going to be there for about a month. This is a potent time as Mars moves in and meets Neptune and other planets that are already in Aries, and will be part of what's called a stellium, which is a fancy astrological term for kind of a meetup or a big party happening in a particular sign or in a particular house. So in this case, it's a big party happening in Aries. And I did do an earlier video about this Aries energy and particularly about Mars energy and kind of what we're being called to do. So I'll put the description for that down below. And then today I want to really look at sovereignty. Sovereignty is a term that is being used in many places today, and it's typically used in one particular way, and I want to suggest that it might be more beneficial for us to be thinking about it in another way. And of course, this comes up now because Aries is one of the two astrological signs that are about sovereignty. The other is Leo. And of course, we think of Leo as, as a lion, as the king of the forest, and leadership and all that. Aries has a different kind of sovereign energy. It's really that initiatory energy that happens at the beginning of the astrological year, which Aries starts, right? It's primal cardinal fire energy. And it's very much an I am kind of energy. I have agency. I can make things happen. I can engage in the world. It's a powerful energy. And when well utilized, it's extremely beneficial. But it can also very much go down into the dark and into war and into conflict. And so we're going to unpack some of that today. And so I hope some of what I share with you today will give you some oomph for this time and some direction for how you can really make the use of this incredibly auspicious spiritual time that we have. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. If you're here for the first time, welcome. Delighted to have you here. I am Maggie Ostara, and I am a sovereignty mentor, and I'm a human design expert, among many other things. And I wrote a book called Feminine Sovereignty, 8 Pillars for Regenerating Ourselves and Our World. So I've been a scholar and teacher and a participant and explorer, visionary explorer in sovereignty for close to 30 years now. It's 28 years, so it's a long time. Been really digging into that. And so that's one of the reasons I want to bring this to the fore for us today, because we are in such incredibly powerful sovereign time when we know how to utilize it. Because I said in the beginning, right, sovereignty can be expressed in different ways. After all, we most commonly associate sovereignty with royalty. Right? It's just the sovereign who is ordained by God to be the king, usually the king, every once in a while the queen, but generally the king, right? And it's a top-down, hierarchical, fairly dictatorial, authoritarian type of structure, right? And then we have what we think of more as sovereignty now, which is more personal sovereignty, what we are wanting to claim sovereignty for ourselves as we recognize that we are actually ordained by God, if you will, or more simply an expression of divine source energy. Everyone is, everything is, right? And so we have that as well. And so we are powerful creators, especially when we learn to act in concert with spirit. So we'll dive into more specifics about that a little later in the video. Let's go ahead and take a look at the chart for today, April 9th, as Mars enters Aries. So Mars is now at the 0 degree of Aries, the very beginning of the astrological year, the very beginning of a new era, if you will. It was supercharged, the same 0 point, back in February, because Neptune and Saturn met there on February 20th. And that was considered largely by many astrologers and human design people as the ignition point, one of a number of ignition points really, but a very, very potent one for the new era as we are really moving into a new time here on planet Earth. Neptune is still in the gate 25 and will be there for another year. Saturn has already moved on to the gate 17, but is still right next to Neptune and is definitely still in Aries. So the gate 25 is known as the gate of spirit, or the love of spirit. So it's a very spiritual energy. It's on the G center, which is the center for love and livability, identity, and direction. So it is an individual energy. It's also in the centering circuit, which is this individual circuitry in human design. So it is about the individual's experience of spirit, the individual's relationship to spirit. Now, because Neptune is there, it's also going to be more communal because Neptune is one of the outer planets and tends to be more about the collective. So we've got a little juxtaposition going on there. But then we have Mars, which is more of a personal planet, has come into that gate 25. So now we have one of the outer planets and one of the inner planets are both there right next to each other. So we've got this conversation going on, right, between Neptune, who is really, the great undifferentiated divine feminine energy where all possibility and divine love is, that dissolves away the old things that no longer serve us, but can also fall into fantasy and addiction and kind of veiling and unconsciousness as well. So it's a little bit complicated. And then we have Mars, our dear friend Mars, who was co-opted by the Romans to become the god of war. But if you want to think about it as one of the places where we have really powerful masculine energy in the planetary system, and certainly in astrology and in human design, then we want to look at how is this being expressed. And as I said, I have a whole video on that if you want to go look at that more. But I think we're being really handed an opportunity, especially here where we've got this dialogue going on between Mars and Neptune, about how can we really kind of rehab Mars. How can we reclaim masculinity from the way that it got co-opted into being a god of war? Because masculinity obviously doesn't have to go that way. Unfortunately, we have too many expressions of toxic masculinity going on right now, which is being stimulated by this way that Mars has been co-opted. But we, all of us, have the power to choose to embody and express Mars energy differently. After all, Mars energy, when you kind of strip it away from that idea of war, is agency. It's sovereignty, right? It's that energy to just engage with life, right? And to go for it. And Mars, of course, rules Aries as well. So Mars is coming in to his own sign. And so there's kind of a double, Aries Mars energy that's happening here. And we have an opportunity to really look at how are each and every one of us embodying and expressing our own Mars energy. Well, what's really interesting is right now the sun is in the gate 51. And the gate 51 is also in Aries. So the sun is in Aries and in the gate 51. And the gate 51 is known as the gate of shock. Or initiation. It's on the will center, so it has some power behind it. It has some fuel. The will center is an engine in the human design system. But what's super interesting, it is now creating a complete channel with Mars and Neptune in the gate 25. Right. So we see this connection here between the will center and the G center, which is in effect bringing the two aspects of the heart in the human design system together, because these are the two centers that were birthed out of the heart chakra in the human design lore. And so this channel is known as the channel of the priest or the priestess or the shaman. It's a highly spiritual channel. And if we look at this together, the gate 51, in its really kind of lower expression, if you will, or its shadow expression, it can be shock. It can be shocking energy. We certainly have a lot of shocking things that are happening right now. And so it can have that expression, but it also has the energy to initiate into higher consciousness. And that's what we want to really invoke with this gate 51 is the sense that we can break through, which can be kind of shocking. When you're initiated into a new level of consciousness, a lot of times it can be a little shocking or at least disruptive because you start to look at the ways you've been doing things and you're like, I don't need that so much, right? And you start to want to change it. But that can also be like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I've been doing it that way. I need to change it. So it can also be that way, which is kind of disruptive. But if we just take this idea that this is about initiation, and it's initiation through a shamanic energy, right, that is being offered to us right now, and that the shamanic energy can give us what we need to help us to rehab Mars. Because we've got this beautiful connection between the sun and Neptune, both high energy heavenly bodies, right? And we already know that our sun has been so active. I mean, we've had so many M-class flares and X-class flares and coronal mass ejections. We've been experiencing tons of solar storms, which is why the aurora borealis has been so beautiful. You know, the sun is really sending us a lot of cosmic energy. The earth herself is also creating a lot of energy and then expelling it through earthquakes and volcanoes, right? And if you look at the Schumann resonance, which is the way that they chart the Earth's frequency, it's also going all over the place, way higher than usual. So we're in a very dynamic, energetic time. And we have so much opportunity when we're able to grasp a hold of this and say, okay, not so much shock, more initiation, not so much conflict, more agency, not so much hierarchy of sovereignty, more of personal sovereignty, individual empowerment, right? Individual expression, individual self-determination, and all of that. And you've probably been hearing that there are two different timelines that are really emerging as two strong timelines. Of course, there's many timelines. Every person has a timeline. We can move between timelines and so on. It's a very interesting thing to study, actually, and check out these days. But just for simplicity's sake, is we really are in a time where there are these two major timelines that are happening, and they're separating, and they're becoming more and more clear as to the distinction between them, right? One of them is very connected to the old order. It's connected to hierarchy, to patriarchy, to power over, to authoritarianism, to dictatorship, to resources and power consolidating in the hands of a very few elites, and then it's backed by violence or the threat of violence. And this is what we've been living in. I mean, we've evolved over the millennium, right? But this has definitely been the character. And things that are coming out in the Epstein files are showing us that actually behind the scenes, a lot of this has still been going on in ways that maybe we didn't know about. So that's one timeline, right? And then the other is the one for people like me and probably people like you, if you're here, where we really want a world that works for everyone. We want a world where there is not so much suffering. Certainly where people have what they need. They have the food that they need. They have the water. They have a safe place to live. They can bring up their kids. You know, they can grow their food. They can have a rich life. And also all of the other beings that we share this planet with, like the trees, for example. I'm such a huge advocate of trees, you know, for trees and all of our ecosystems, and then also all of the beings that live in all of the ecosystems, right? We want a world that works more harmoniously, that lives more in peace, where we are living more in reciprocity, and it's a place that we love and we would be proud to leave to future generations. Right? Those are two different timelines that are happening. One is much more associated with toxic masculinity, right? One is much more associated with the divine feminine. And so this is writ large right here in this particular alignment. And the question is which one do you want to give your energy to? And I know you're probably saying, I would never start war. I would never do this violence. I would never be coercive that way. I would never treat people that way. I would never do that. And I believe you, right? You wouldn't necessarily do that. But that's not the whole story. There's also a whole lot that goes on inside of us. And that's often the place that we need to look. And this alignment here with this channel of the priest, priestess, shaman of the 2551, it gives us all the energy we need to have a breakthrough around what's going on in our inner landscape having to do with conflict. Now, before I dive deeper into that topic, which is our main theme for today, I wanted to just show you this piece from the Human Design Mandala for what this alignment is. Okay, and you can see that Mars and Neptune are actually in the same gate together. You can see that Mercury is also conjunct. They're in Pisces, but it's right there. And then Saturn is right there as well. A little farther over, you see the Sun in the gate 51, which is also in Aries. And then you can see Chiron. So this is part of the stellium. And if you start putting in, the dwarf planets and the Kuiper belt objects, the asteroids and stuff, there's as many as 10 heavenly bodies that are showing up right there. So this is what the stellium is. It's just all of these different planetary bodies, asteroids and everything showing up here right in Aries. And it's really kind of like a searchlight, if you want to think about it. It's like a searchlight that is coming down on each one of us and is saying, are you paying attention to this Aries energy? And if you're not, we're going to shine a light on you until you do. So let's talk a little bit more about sovereignty and what sovereignty means. I've been hearing, as I said, many people using sovereignty, and it tends to be used as a statement of autonomy or a statement of self-determination. And I would call it sovereignty from or sovereignty against. Right? I'm declaring my sovereignty from the old order. I'm declaring my self-determination against the forces that are trying to get me to conform or to fit into a box or do its bidding, right? I'm pushing against the outer forces that have been trying to get me to do certain things. And maybe I have agreed to do it in the past because I didn't know any better. And now I'm taking on my own destiny, and I'm going to be sovereign of my being. It's awesome. It's a wonderful first step for everyone to do, because when we start to wake up and we start to realize how much we've actually agreed to our own confinement inside of conformity, it can be difficult, right? And if we go back to that notion of shock and initiation, we want to initiate ourselves out of that. So declaring I am sovereign, I'm stepping into my sovereignty, is a kind of initiation, right? Because Aries is also initiatory energy, so it really fits. There is a shadow to this, though, that I want to name here and help you to maybe see a different way of working with sovereignty. So the thing is that whenever we declare like our freedom from something, right, or here our sovereignty, our freedom from that, we stay tied to it, okay, because we're pushing against something. And so we stay tethered to it, and it keeps us tethered to the past. It keeps us tethered to the thing that we are moving away from. We're not truly free until whatever that old order was, whether that's an old political order, whether it's an old way that you operated inside of your family, whether that was an old order that you saw happening in a particular community, whatever it is, right? You're wanting to make your way out of it. But then the old of that, right, that was holding you back eventually becomes irrelevant, because you're like, I'm not dealing with it anymore. Well, we think it becomes irrelevant. But the next step with sovereignty is really to become sovereign of yourself, sovereign of your own personal domain, sovereign of your energy field, sovereign of your emotions, sovereign of your physical body, sovereign of, how you're showing up in the world, right? Sovereign of rather than sovereign against or sovereign from. And this helps us really turn our attention to ourselves, which to me is a more juicy and exciting and full of possibility form of sovereignty than the other. Because the other, once you declare I am sovereign, right, and I have self-determination, the question is, okay, now what? Right, now what? Well, the thing is that we are run largely by subconscious programs. And so becoming sovereign, in my view, and like I said, I wrote a book about it, I've been talking about it for a long time, is to start to look inside at those programs and to start to see how we have been continuing to act in ways that are not beneficial to us. Now, some of those programs in the subconscious are extremely helpful, like knowing how to walk, knowing how to drive a car, knowing how to read, right? Those are all things that we learned at one point, and now those programs just operate. We don't have to think about it every day, right? We don't have to think about how to walk. We don't have to think about how to read. Those are things that we just know how to do. So those are very, very beneficial. And then, of course, your subconscious also runs all of your systems inside your body. It's hugely beneficial. And as I'm sure you know, we have other programs that are running on in there, right? And they're programs that usually were created either in early life, in this life, or we brought in with us from other lives. I am a person who has experienced other lives, so I really believe in that. So I invite you to come with me. And even if you think about things that have come in with you and you can't really find a cause for it in your personal life, in this life, a lot of times those are things that you brought in with you. You can look to see where your south node is, because that can give you a clue as to what it is that you brought with you. So like for me, my south node, as well as my sun in Aries. And so I know warrior in many lifetimes, right? The Aries energy is something that I'm here to embody, but also something here to evolve in this life, because it's my south node, which means I'm evolving it, and then I'm moving on, and I'm moving into Libra, which is where my north node is, which is much more ruled by the divine feminine. So I'm making this trajectory really from the masculine to the feminine in my nodal axis. So you can look at that for yourself if you want to get a clue as to what you might have brought in with you. But whatever the case, whether that was something that you created, that program was created when you were young in this life, or whether it was something you brought in with you, the point is that they usually were created from some kind of traumatic event. Now, I'm not necessarily talking about something like, your mother leaving or being in a car accident. Those are big T traumas. We have smaller T traumas all the time that get stuck in our bodies, and especially when we're small people. Like, let's say, your dad was really busy and you really wanted his attention, and at some point he turned around and said, "Please stop bothering me. Can you go in the other room and be quiet for now?" And that was shocking to you, right? And it was traumatizing to you. And you took it in and you made a story about that says, I really shouldn't bother anybody or ask for what I need. I shouldn't ask for any attention. And then that has been operating in your subconscious ever since. And so those programs that we create, which are generally associated with some level of survival, and when we're really small people, conflicts that we have are perceived conflicts that we have with our parents in particular, or the adults that we look to for care, can be very, very disruptive and very scary, right? Because we are totally dependent on them when we're little, right? And so it's like, oh no, my dad was mad at me. I'm not going to be able to survive if I don't shut up, right? And sometimes we make really strong statements like this. I don't imagine that this is news for you, right? Because this is something that we've all really been learning. But my point is that those traumas, right? No, however big or small they are, we tend to push them down into our energy field because we didn't know how to process the emotions at that time. And so a lot of times we froze, we brace, and then we push it down. And what happens is that we trap an enormous amount of energy inside of our energy field and in the cells of our body. Over time, that can cause a lot of issues. Eventually, it can cause illness. It can certainly cause mental illness. It can cause physical illness. It can create discomfort. It can do a lot of things because that suppressed energy, it doesn't go away. It's just down there, right? It's just down there. And we tend to forget about it, right? We forget about it. We're not thinking about it. It's veiled. We're managing our lives. We're just trying to focus on what it is we need to focus on. And so we forget about it until something brings it to the surface. Now, this can happen really anytime, like in a situation where your partner leaves or your job is eliminated or your kids move away, right? Something like that, or you have a health challenge. Then the kind of subterranean sense of abandonment or resentment or unworthiness or anxiety can surface. And they're often connected to those really simple but very debilitating beliefs that are also programs like, I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I don't know how to make things happen, nobody loves me, I'm all alone, I'm terribly afraid, how can I ever manage, right? Those are little thoughts that we have that are very powerful deep in our subconscious. in our world today, right, we're effectively living in an environment where you could have all kinds of things that come up on a regular basis, not just like those big life changes that I mentioned, right, but things that push your buttons, things that create anxiety, things that surface the wounds, the emotions, the anger, the anxiety, because we're in such a dynamic environment with those two timelines splitting. If you are focusing on the timeline where things are really breaking down and really falling apart, and there's a lot of assertions of control, you're likely to get pretty stimulated. You're likely to get pretty activated because it's upsetting. I mean, it's upsetting, right? There's a lot of horrific things that are going on in the world right now. I am not at all saying that there isn't, or that it's not horrific, or that we shouldn't be doing certain things we can do in ordinary reality to help with that. What I am saying is that with all this energy coming in from the sun, all this energy coming up from the earth, it is forcing change to happen. And it's bringing in higher frequency energy, and it is pushing those lower frequency energies, right? The traumas, the wounds, up to the surface. And it's not really pleasant. It's difficult. It's like, I've had tons of this happening. I've had shame come up. I've had anger come up. I've had unworthiness come up. I've had guilt come up. These are not things that I normally associate with myself. They're so deep in my substructure. I didn't even recognize them when they came up, right? I know some of them were from my soul's journey. They weren't really from this lifetime, but they're coming up, right? And if you choose to try to keep pushing them down, you're going to really exhaust yourself. And ultimately it's a losing game, because this is inexorable. It's happening. It's not going to stop. Which is why people are getting really tweaked around you. It's why people are, some people are really acting out because they are trying so hard to hold on, and the energy is so pushing them in another direction, and they're getting wonky. They're getting crazy. So the good news is that when you make a choice to allow that energy to come up and to pay attention to it, to let it just flow through you, to cry if you need to take a power walk if you need to write all you need to in a journal, to, beat a pillow, like whatever it is, right? Whatever it is, to just move the energy. It may be possible that there may be some content for you to pay attention to, but there may not be. It may be just moving energy. And when you do that, it frees up so much energy for you. It frees it up so that, initially you might be tired as those waves of suppressed emotion move out of your system. I know sometimes it's tiring for me, but after that's done, you have so much more energy because you are no longer using your energy subconsciously to keep pushing all of that down. And it's becoming, like I said, more and more extreme because these other energies are coming in and they're filling you up with more light and more higher frequency energy, and those other ones, and you're like, right? But if you can surrender to the process, right? And you can trust your inner being, you can trust the wise one within, which is your sovereign self, right? If you can trust that part, you can let your personality give over to that part and say, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to release it, and we're going to feel better later. You're going to have a much easier time, and you're going to move through things much faster. And this energy that's happening in Aries right now is so incredibly fast. We're in the year of the fire horse, which is really fast. Aries is really fast. We have a stellium in Aries. It's all really fast. So the good part of this is that you can clear stuff faster and faster and faster, and with less effort than you ever have before. And if we put this in the context of this alignment right now, what we're doing as we're allowing all that energy to move is we are ending the war inside ourselves. Because if you think about this, right, we've been pushing down this energy, say, I'm not going to pay attention to that. I am not going to, let that stop me. I'm going to barrel through in my life, right? Which, I've done that plenty. When we do that, we are actually at war with ourselves, because there's a part of us that has the foot on the gas and we want to go. But this part that we suppress down here is like, no, you're not going there. No, you think you are. No, That's not going to happen. And so you get undermined by something. Somebody betrays you because you have a history of betrayal. You get sick at a certain key point because that's how your subconscious works with you to keep you from moving forward. Because those down there, those wounded parts, they have their foot on the gas. Right? So there's this conflict that's constantly going on inside of you, which is so habitual and so chronic and so familiar to you, you don't even know what's going on. You know it's going on when you do make a choice to move in a new direction, and then you can feel the resistance, right? And the road to sovereignty, okay, is when we meet that moment and we go, okay, I'm going to dive in and I'm going to release what needs to be released. I may need to forgive myself. I may need to forgive others, but whatever I'm doing is I'm going to end the conflict inside myself. I'm going to bring all of the parts of me here together. I'm going to heal whatever is in there. I'm going to come under guidance of the wise one within. And for me, the process of becoming sovereign is really collapsing the distinction between you of everyday life, you of ordinary reality, your personality, if you will, and that wise one within. That you create a relationship so that those parts can have a better flow of communication. But over time, they become more and more aligned, and you start to live more and more as the wise one within, because you are infused from the inside with that, and that is what really makes you sovereign. Because when you have all that wounded stuff in there and the programs are still running, you're not really truly self-determining, because the programs are in there determining. Your subconscious is far more powerful and far more fast than your conscious mind. And so we need to heal what's in the subconscious in order for us to become more conscious and we become more aligned. And so this is the promise of what we have going on right now, is to actually do that inner work. And the greatest spiritual growth opportunity that we have right now comes from your ability to shift from Mars energy, right, as warrior energy, warrior being war-like energy, to expressing as a violent perpetrator, right, to being a spiritual warrior, having the courage and the agency to look inside and heal that conflict within. We may not be able to end all the toxic masculinity and abusive behavior that is prevalent, that we see, certainly in the media, like not in the short term. But what we can, each one of us do, is choose to end that conflict inside, right? To end the ways that we're fighting inside ourselves and we're fighting with each other, even in little ways, right? Because when we don't have peace inside ourselves, we are not sovereign. We have factions that are vying for our attention and our energy, right? And we have one foot on the gas and one foot on the brake. And so we want to move away from this coercive sense of sovereignty, right, into this spiritual sovereignty of recognizing yourself as a spiritual being, an energy being experiencing this life on earth. In a couple of weeks from now, I'm going to be opening up registration for our Sovereign Sisterhood. This is the kind of work that we do in the Sovereign Sisterhood. Really, the purpose of the Sovereign Sisterhood, if I were to give you like the guerrilla version of it, is learning to live as the wise one within. Right, is dismantling the things that are in our way, and then stepping more and more into the truth of our being. And we use human design as a way to get more in touch with a genuine expression of who we are. Your human design isn't who you are. It is a map that can help you to explore who you are, and it can help you understand certain energies that you're always going to be connected to, and others that are going to come and go, but that you might want to dive into and really master. It helps you with all of those things, right? But it's just a piece of the puzzle, because we need to, like I said, strip away those ways that we have confined ourselves. And human design kind of points to that, but it doesn't tell us how to do it, which is why we do a lot of nervous system work in the sisterhood. We also do different kinds of energy practices. We do guided meditations. I just created a model called the Cycle of Awakening, which is helping us have a map of what is happening when we go through this. And the first time we go in, a lot of times we're initiated from the outside. Something happens in the outer world, like I said earlier, right? And we get initiated into a different perspective. But over time, we can learn to master that cycle of awakening so that we can go in and we can be in charge, really in command of our own evolutionary process. And so that's really what the sisterhood is all about. And I'm excited because for the rest of the year, we're going to use the cycle of awakening as we cycle through the 8 pillars of feminine sovereignty from my book, which are the core areas of life, in my view, that we want to really heal and evolve and master in order for us to be sovereign of our own being, and then be in the world as sovereign beings with other people. Because that's a whole nother level, is how do we treat each other as sovereign? Right? How do we do that? How do we step out of codependency or avoidant behavior, or whatever it is that we have, right? And then really meet each other. And as one of the members of our sisterhood says, is she grants sovereignty to other people in the sense that she really sees them as being able to take care of themselves and being a healing being, even if they're having a hard time, even if they're in tears or they're struggling right now, but just really seeing them as a sovereign being who can be self-determining and is on their evolutionary journey. So if you are interested in rising into sovereignty, right, really taking advantage of this historical moment when so much is available to us, and you want to step onto that timeline, right, which is what considered the original organic timeline here of planet Earth, then I encourage you to come and check it out. And if it resonates for you, to join us for that journey. So stay attuned. I will be bringing this out more later in the month and to give you some more details about it. All right, my friends, take really good care of yourself. It's a very dynamic, challenging time right now. And it's really important for you to be taking care of your physical body. Our physical bodies are going through a lot. Like I said, all this energy coming in, making sure you get enough sleep. You've got clean water. You're blessing your water. And you're getting plenty of time with the trees because they are our allies and they will help you through this time. All right, my friends, many, many blessings. Much love.